A full buyer's guide video on the 2014 to 2023 Maserati Quattroporte. I've driven both the V6 and V8 variants, and I'm going to be covering the reliability, maintenance, some great resources you can use, and talk about if this generation of Quattroporte is worth buying in today's market and economy, both used and new. And towards the end, we will also cover some of the alternatives to this car as well that you can purchase. So let's get started and let's talk about reliability first. As always, my most favorite resource to use to find issues with the car is going to be NHTSA.gov. This website will compile complaints, recalls, current investigations, and something called manufacturer communications. This is also known as TSBs or Technical Service Bulletin. And under this section, this is where the manufacturer themselves find issues with their car. But I will say, when you look up most Maserati vehicles, there's not a whole lot of TSBs to cover. For instance, I looked up a 2014 Quattroporte and there's only 26 manufacturer communications. But other cars tend to have hundreds of them, like the more mainstream cars. So I'm not sure if they're not properly reporting it or not, but regardless, we can go to the complaint section and find 8 of them. And this is where customers like ourselves would write into NHTSA and we would report the issues that we are having. I'm not going to go through each and every one of these complaints and TSBs. I mainly just want to show you the resources so you can go out and do the research yourself, not just for this car, but for any car. But it is important to look at the recalls as well. We had an improper fuel line problem causing a fuel leak that can potentially result in a fire. Fortunately, a dealership will take care of the recall for free because recalls will actually affect your life. So the manufacturer is forced to fix these problems for you for free. But when you look at the various manufacturer communications, those TSBs, those are only going to be covered under warranty, and it is imperative that you do get a warranty with this car, because the next resource that I'm going to recommend to you is the forums, because sadly we don't have too many TSBs to go off of. We really do have to rely on the forums to get a good idea of all of the issues that you can potentially run into with this car. And when you go to MaseratiLife.com, shows you a good representation of Maserati Life. We have owners here with misfires in their engine. We also have a thread talking about common issues with the car. Again, I'll have all of this linked below and I'll have it shown on the screen here for you to check out. But another individual talking about his experiences with his 2014 Quattroporte, talking about banging noises when shifting into reverse, and a loud ticking noise coming from the hood, apparently some strange turbo noises, and the engine also died on him. Multiple little issues here. Honestly, in the case of these Maseratis, I actually think the forums are a more useful resource to go by, more so than NHTSA, but using both in conjunction with one another can be really powerful and you can be armed with some great information. But the key takeaway after you read these forums and NHTSA is you should just understand there's too many problems to count, and even if one of them takes place, it can literally bankrupt you. Because yes, the used prices on this is very spicy. I've seen them and I'm going to talk about it, and many people are going to be tempted to pull the trigger, but the reality is if you're not covered, if you don't have a proper warranty with this, you are absolutely SOL. So let's go ahead and let's talk about warranty coverage next. Alright, when you buy these cars new, you get a 4-year, 50,000 mile warranty, and there's no complimentary maintenance included. I believe there were talks about Maserati extending the powertrain warranty for up to 10 years, but honestly, even if they do, that's great, but the reality is these modern day cars have a lot of electronics in them, And that's what really needs to be extended for 10 years, because this isn't like the 1980s. You know what I mean? It's not like a 10-year-old car is a 1970s vehicle, which has carburetors and pretty much no electronics, super basic. Used cars in those times, 70s, 80s, 90s, that was okay. But nowadays, a 10-year-old car is, well, this 2014 Quattroporte. That's a 10-year-old car now. So in this modern era, it's these electronics and these actuators, along with really the drivetrain, because, you know, these cars do have some turbo problems. You just compile and compound all of this, it basically equals bankruptcy. That's why a warranty is an absolute must, not just with this car, but with pretty much any modern day car. Heck, you can look at a new Honda. Some guy made all kinds of videos talking about the multiple issues he's had with the humble Honda. Modern day car ownership, yeah, it's just very expensive and can be a really big headache, especially if you're not covered. So let's talk about warranty coverage here, because many people ask me where should they go to get an extended warranty. Well, me personally, I remember I had the Hendrick Auto Guard warranty on a 2010 Acura TSX, and I paid $2,000 for that warranty. Covered me for 4 years or 120,000 miles, whichever comes first. And I had multiple issues with the humble little Acura, and the warranty paid for itself. Not to mention, it was a pro-rated warranty, so because I didn't keep the car for 4 years, I only kept it for 2 years and I sold it, I got 2 years of that unused warranty money back. So I got a $1,000 refund. So when you're buying a warranty, make sure that it is pro-rated. The next thing, any chain store, large dealership like your Toyota, Lexus, Mercedes, Maserati themselves, Jaguar, it doesn't matter. Any one of those large chain stores, their finance department will sell you a warranty. It doesn't necessarily have to be a good one, because it's not the dealership selling you the warranty. It's really them partnering with a warranty company. So ask what the name of that warranty company is. Make sure it's prorated, of course, and make sure that it covers you, not just for your powertrain, but also everything else. Suspension, electronics, actuators, HVAC, everything, bumper to bumper. That's what you need, not just a basic powertrain. But don't be surprised if a proper warranty ends up costing you about $10,000 on this car. And yeah, the finance department, they're always going to throw you a high price at first. So just act like, oh, that's too much money, or you're not interested in buying it. Because as soon as you do that, the finance guy, he'll just be like, okay, I'll lower the price for you. Because they're really incentivized to sell you those things like warranties, maintenance packages, etc. They're worth buying on cars like this, but the first price that they quote you, it's always going to be their highest. So just act like it's too much money and you're not interested, and they will lower the price of that warranty. Some people are super against warranties because they say that, oh, they're just going to skimp out and not pay out on the claims, and that's not always true. If you're claiming about stupid things like brakes and other maintenance items, yeah, of course they're going to deny that. Or if you come in there with like a heavily modified car, stanced out with a massive tune on it, yeah, of course they're going to void your warranty for those reasons. But I have heard Maserati's own warranty is the best. So the best thing you can do if you're interested in buying one of these cars used is, before you buy the car, ask your local Maserati dealership if they will sell you a warranty after you end up buying, you know, a Quattroporte from whatever dealership that you want to buy from. And people have gotten quotes from Maserati for a proper bumper-to-bumper warranty through Maserati. It was between $3,000 to $5,000 for 2 years. Depending on how long you want to keep this car, you can also inquire about a 4 or a 5-year warranty as well. But that's the other problem with buying a car like this. This isn't some mass-produced vehicle. You don't have a Maserati dealership on every street corner. So if you happen to be unlucky, not have one nearby, and just as worse, if you have a Maserati dealership close by, but they're all idiots and they don't know how to properly work on these cars, then you're going to be SOL. Because like this one gentleman in the Maserati Life forum said, he had a loud ticking sound from under his hood. It was the high pressure fuel pump. The dealership told him that it's going to get worse as time goes on, and that's normal. That's literally what the dealership told this person. So just as a backup plan, it's a good idea to have an independent tech that works on these cars as well nearby. But again, it's going to be hard to find an independent tech that specializes in Maserati, because again, it's not a common vehicle that most people buy. But hopefully this helped you out regarding the warranty. Let's talk about maintenance next. Alright, when I googled the Quattroporte maintenance schedule, I like how the dealerships themselves, they're running some type of blog. They have the service schedule listed here with exactly what they are going to replace and check, along with how much each service interval is going to cost you. The 12,000 mile service, it's going to cost around $550. 25,000 mile service, it's going to be $920. 37,500 miles, or every 3 years, it's going to cost you $1,160. This is where you replace the spark plugs. 50,000 mile service is where you're going to be replacing the belts and the engine air filters. This service will cost you $1,840. And it goes on, and then they end off at the 75,000 mile mark. I like how they end off there. It's as if that's the life cycle of this car. Like it's not worth keeping after the 75K mark. I don't know, I kind of agree with that. But yeah, as you can see, warranties cost a lot of money. And if you want to be a hero and not buy a warranty, then each and every problem that arises, you're going to be spending an absolute fortune with the repairs. We have the maintenance here. Insurance is going to be high on a car like this because it's a pretty rare vehicle. Plus you got tires. And I saw somewhere that the Quattroporte eats tires. I'm not sure what that means. Like, yeah, it's a performance car with a lot of power. You're going to be driving it more aggressively, but for it to be eating tires is very strange. I guess if you buy the all-wheel drive variant of the Quattroporte, that can certainly cause you to eat tires. But specifically on carcomplaints.com, this individual said that when you're going around corners, the Quattroporte can eat tires. Something to look out for, I suppose, but you get the idea. This is not a cheap vehicle at all to maintain and to keep up with. Okay, I'm on Car Gurus because this is my most favorite site to search used and new cars, mainly because it's very easy to filter out the clapped out vehicles like the accident cars, lemon history, salvage title, etc. You want to avoid these cars because not only will it lower your resale value when you go to sell it later, but you also have no idea how the body shop is going to put this car back together. So it's never going to be up to OEM spec. This is also one of the reasons why I love leasing and dumping cars, because if you get into an accident, God forbid, and it lowers the resale value of your car, you don't have to worry about it. You can just turn it back into the dealership. So you always have that option when you lease for the first 2-3 years or however long you want to lease for. But anyway, in the used car market, the cheapest 2014 Quattroporte costs $15,995 with 97,000 miles on it. That is remarkable considering the fact that these cars are well over 6 figures when they're new. Obviously, dealerships are going to discount the car heavily by 15-20%, but that's besides the point. The MSRP of these cars are very high, so these things have nearly tanked by 80-90%, which, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised by because this thing is 9 years old, almost 10 years old at this point. But it's just cool because this body style is still in production today, at least until 2023. I think 24 or 25 they're coming out with like a V6 hybrid model with 800 horsepower. Either way, as of now, August 2023, the car is still being made, and you can get a 6-figure car that pretty much looks the same for $16,000. That is, I'm not gonna lie, very tempting and very cool. But as you would imagine, these cars are pretty much clapped out. Who knows how many issues these things have compiled during that time, and just how many of these issues were just ignored by the owners. And this is how you end up with clapped out vehicles, because the previous owners, they're going to neglect the car. Certain issues might pop up, might cost a lot of money, and they're not going to fix it, and you're going to end up with a car with all sorts of vibrations, interior rattles, etc. Because these are big, heavy flagship cars. You're going to run into suspension problems, warped brake rotors, and they're going to cause vibrations. And you know, this is why I'm not a huge fan of the used car market. You fix one thing And then new things just keep popping up because that's just the nature of these cars. Not just these cars, any used car. But you can obviously get some lower mileage examples with less than 15,000 miles for around 40 grand, $45,000. And that's cool, but like I mentioned, that warranty is going to cost you a fortune. Plus you got your tax, title, registration fees on top of that. But it is nice to know that low mileage versions of these cars can be had for reasonable amounts of money. And yes, the other flagships, your Audi A8s, your 7 Series, your Jaguar XJ, S-Class, they all depreciate too. Even the Lexus LS 460, all these cars, they depreciate, but this one is a little bit harder in the way that it goes down in value. And next we can look into the new Maserati Quattroporte market. Okay, you take a look at the new Quattroporte market, you're going to see that the lowest priced models are going to be the 2022s, and that makes sense. But the thing you have to keep in mind with the 2022 model years is you can't lease them anymore. Once the car is one model year old, Maserati Financial, or I guess JP Morgan Chase Financial, won't let you lease the car. You actually have to finance it or pay cash for it. So the 2022s, they're going for around 88 grand. And when you sort by the 2023s, the lowest price model is $109,000. And all of these cars seem to be discounted for the most part between 15, sometimes even 20% off MSRP. And that's because they're basically discounting it to what it's really worth. Because let's be real here, these MSRPs, they are all super inflated to begin with. And I haven't talked about engines much because it doesn't really matter which one you go with. I've driven both the V6 and the V8. I'll be honest with you, the V8 wasn't exactly a firecracker experience. The Quattroporte is a rather forgettable experience. Honestly, pretty bland. It didn't really have that Italian spice that I thought it would have. Don't get me wrong, it was a good car, it just wasn't a great car. And the main difference between the V6 and the V8, well, the V8 pulled really hard out on the highway, but you will be surprised with the V6, especially the one with over 400 horsepower, not just the base model V6, the SQ4 or the Modena models. They pull extremely well. I was more impressed with the V6 than I was with the V8 because you have a high expectation out of the V8, over 500 horsepower. You expect it to be this unbelievable experience, and it just wasn't. It was pretty subdued. Didn't even crackle and pop as much as I thought it would. It's nothing like the AMG V8, so I was a little disappointed with the lack of character. Even if you go with the V6, it's going to get terrible fuel economy, around 16 city, 23 highway. So that is really awful. Part of it has to do with the fact it's around 4,800 pounds. It's over 207 inches long, so it's going to be difficult to fit inside of a garage. Fuel economy, that's another place where you're going to be absolutely screwed when you buy one of these cars. But it is big, it is pretty comfortable. You can definitely fit large adults in the rear seats, and it does have a lot of swagger when you look at it, but driving wise, it's really not that special, if I'm honest. But I will say, with the newer Alfa Romeo and Maserati products, I believe they made huge strides in the interior quality compared to the first few model years. That's definitely something to keep in mind. But sadly, when I ran some of the leasing numbers for a 2023 Quattroporte, it's not really that good. A $127,000 Modena Quattroporte with a 15% discount leased for around $1,700 a month. And I'm using AutoCompanion's free leasing calculator, and I'll have this linked in the description box below so you can run your own numbers, not just on this Maserati, but on pretty much any car that you want. So this is a powerful resource because it shows you the interest rate on the lease. And fortunately, the interest rate is less than 1%, 0.5%. But the reason why these cars lease out so terribly is because of the residual value. On a 3-year lease, they're showing a 39% residual value. And that's what drives up the monthly payments on these Maserati leases. The only good thing is it's better than financing because you're actually making equity in the car. And at the end of 3 years, you can either walk away from the car or you can buy it outright. And when you actually buy it outright, you have all this equity made. Whereas if you had financed it, the way financing works, at least in the United States, is banks will front load all of the interest, meaning you take out a 5, 6, 7 year loan. The first 3, 4 years of your finance payments are going to go primarily into the interest of the loan. So you have very little equity in the car after 3 or 4 years. And this is why so many people end up underwater on their financed cars. And you're just compounding the issue when you buy these luxury cars that depreciate like a rock. So these vehicles, even though the payments might be high, leasing is still the best way to go, especially since there's hardly any interest on the lease. If you got around 20% off MSRP, you can maybe snag this for around $1,500 a month. And the other thing, when you do lease these cars, there is a $2,000 incentive from Maserati. So that can tack on top of the dealer discount. But it's imperative that people learn and understand what leasing is so they can stop getting screwed over when they buy these cars. And also use AutoCompanion's free leasing calculator so you know what the interest rate is on the lease, because these leasing programs and these incentives, they will change month after month. But is this car a good value proposition? I really don't think so. This is something most people lust after. And yeah, some of the used car prices, it can be tempting, but I already covered that can be very expensive as well. So in this next segment, let's go ahead and let's talk about some alternatives to the Quattroporte. Right now in August of 2023, the best big body sedan to lease is a 2023 Audi S8. Audi dealerships have really been blowing their cars out the door lately, and these cars will lease between $1,200 and $1,300 a month. Assuming you have perfect credit and you're putting no money down on the lease, $1,200 to $1,300, that's really not bad considering the fact the MSRP of these can range between $120,000 and $150,000. Most dealerships are going to at least give you a 10% discount on these cars, and the incentives are nuts. You have a customer credit of $12,500, a Costco program of $5,000, and if you're a PenFed member, you can get an additional $2,000 in incentives. That's close to 20 grand in incentives, and you take 10% off with a dealer discount. I mean, it's over $30,000 off of the sticker price of an Audi S8. That's brand new. But sadly, when you use AutoCompanion's free leasing calculator, the interest rate on the lease is around 6.8%. So that's not cool. One of the things you can do to get that interest rate down is by putting up multiple security deposits, which is not a down payment. It's actually a deposit that you get back at the end of the lease. You're basically just buying down the interest. You can also do a one-pay lease that can lower the interest rate, but all things considered, that's pretty good. If you really love your Italian sports sedans, you can look into leasing a new Alfa Romeo Giulia. It's a much smaller vehicle, but it's a new car, leases for around $700 a month. And honestly, the Alfa Romeos, from my experience, they have a little bit more character. I really like the way Alfa vehicles feel to drive. I get that it only has the 4-cylinder engine with the base models, but it's not a bad engine. And if you don't mind having a smaller car, these vehicles can be a really enjoyable experience on a day-to-day basis. Another Audi you can consider is the SQ5 SUV. You can lease that for around $650 a month. That's personally the car I would probably buy in today's current market. But I'm just presenting to you these vehicles because they're new, they're lease cars. You don't have to worry about depreciation. You don't have to worry about really any major maintenance items. You definitely don't have to worry about repairs because under a lease, you're under warranty. So you don't have to worry about anything. And this is the way I want pretty much all of you to enjoy nice cars. I want you to have nice things. I want you to enjoy nice things, but I want you to do it in an intelligent way where it's not going to destroy your wallet or your sanity, because the average person watching these videos are going to say, oh my gosh, is he comparing this Quattroporte to an Alfa Romeo Giulia? They're not even in the same class or category. You know, those people will never understand that I am actually trying to help out the consumer still purchase something that's nice and prestigious and that's brand new without any headaches attached to it. Because that's one of the main things about my channel that I really haven't done a good job of explaining to you. One of the main purposes of me making these videos is to show people that having nice things is possible and can be totally obtainable. But sadly, that point has completely missed a lot of people. But those who get it, they appreciate the content for those reasons. Actually, I'll just throw this in there while I'm at it. Financing a lot of these used clapped out cars is pretty much very difficult, if not impossible, in today's market. I saw one bank, they wouldn't even lend on a 2016 vehicle. They said a 2016 car is too old. I honestly couldn't believe it. So even though you're seeing all these great deals in the used car market for these Quattroportes, most people can't even take advantage of it because you can't even get financing for it. And even if you do, you're going to be paying probably even 12 or 15%, even if you have good credit. And I already told you how banks like to front load all of the interest. Even on a new Maserati, if you're going to finance it, the interest rate is 5%. So as you can see, the interest rate on the lease is only 0.5%. less than 1. So obviously in the new market, it makes more sense to lease, but in the used market, literally no other car reviewer is going to tell you this, but I will. There is something called the infinite banking concept. Maybe you've heard of it. It involves using a whole life insurance policy. You dump some money into it, and you're now able to use that money as collateral, and you're now able to borrow against the death benefit. In most cases, you can borrow up to 90% of whatever you dumped into the policy or whatever it's grown to. So you got 50K lying in the policy, you can take out, 90% of that, and you can go out and you can purchase one of these used Maseratis or whatever used car you want to purchase. And the interest on the policy loan is going to be a simple interest that's not front loaded. And really, you don't even have to pay back the policy loan if you don't want to. It just gets subtracted out of your death benefit when you pass away. But it would be wise for you to pay back the policy loan so the policy doesn't lapse. But if you're looking into doing one of those types of infinite banking whole life insurance policies, it is not the sucky one that the average insurance agent is going to sell you. That's the one that Dave Ramsey yells at everyone for getting. This is a very specially engineered whole life insurance policy with a lot of great benefits, and you're able to borrow from it, invest, buy cars, do whatever you want with pretty much no risk. And you get to avoid the rigmarole of dealing with traditional banks and their super high interest rates. You get to avoid all of that. No credit checks, no credit score effects, none of that nonsense. But again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. You can do your own research about it. I'm not telling you to do what I'm doing or to go out and do one of these policies. I want you to do your own research on that. You can just Google infinite banking concept. A bunch of videos and articles will pop up. You can read on it and see if that's right for you. But I just want to share with you something that no other car reviewer will ever share with you. They pretty much don't even know about it. But that's pretty much been one of the best ways I found to finance a used car, or even supercars. Actually, that's what I personally want to do. But again, you can do your own research and figure out what works best for you in your life. All right, overall, I do like these cars. I think they look amazing. They drive good, but not great. I'm just sad that the V8 doesn't have a ton of character. Yes, it's powerful. Yes, it's cool. But really, I was impressed with the V6 and the amount of thrust that it had, especially around town. But fuel economy is terrible. Repairs can add up. Maintenance costs a lot. Same thing with insurance and tires. And you have to be extremely wealthy to be able to afford one of these cars. No matter what you do, buy it used, lease it new, doesn't matter. It's just not a very good deal. That's why I showed you some of those other alternatives, like the new Alfa Romeo Giulias, the Audi S8, Audi SQ5. I just want to show you some decent new car deals. But if you're intent on buying a used car and you love to drive, this might seem very boring to you, but honestly, a good condition 2013 to 2020 Lexus GS 350 is pretty amazing to drive. I get that it has nowhere near the same level of swagger as the Quattroporte, but trust me, that's a great driving car. And I'm not saying that car is worry-free either. You're definitely going to need a warranty on that, but getting a warranty, doing the maintenance, insurance, all those things are going to be much cheaper on a Lexus GS 350. And again, there's always going to be those people saying that none of these cars compete with the Quattroporte. But what you really need to understand is all of these cars are competing with your wallet. You have to do what makes sense for your wallet, and you have to really step outside of the class of vehicle, the spec sheets. You have to get out of that, and I'm really trying to help people buy and enjoy nice cars without destroying their wallets. That's the main purpose behind these videos. It's to edify and to open people's eyes to what's possible out there. And hopefully all of the resources I shared with you were valuable. I will leave you with one last resource, and that is Edmunds.com. I really like the way they distinguish between the model years and they tell you what's new for every model year. So again, if you're intent on buying one of these cars used, you can see which model years came with what new features. Like in 2017, I believe that's when they rolled out Apple CarPlay and Android Auto for the Quattroporte. So to find useful details and information like that, I like to use Edmunds, but I hope everything else was of value to you along with all of the suggestions I gave. Thanks again for watching this video. Take care and goodbye.